The courtroom was packed, the tension thick in the air. Clint Eastwood, usually a calm figure in public, stood at the front, facing a judge who was clearly amused by the situation. Clint had always been known for his unflinching demeanor, but today he was caught in a fight that wasn't scripted. He had been called to court, but it wasn't for any movie role or appearance. It was for a matter that struck too close to home. The judge, a smug, middle-aged man with a silver tie, sat back in his chair and smirked as Clint stood before him. "Mr. Eastwood, you may be a Hollywood icon," the judge said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "but in my courtroom, you're just another defendant." The room chuckled lightly and Clint's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being belittled, especially not by someone who seemed so out of touch. But Clint wasn't just any defendant. What the judge didn't know was that Clint Eastwood wasn't alone today. He had a secret weapon that none of them could see coming. The judge continued, his confidence building with each word. "You may have a lot of fans, Mr. Eastwood, but here we follow the law, not the silver screen." The judge mocked, his eyes scanning the courtroom for any support. Clint, however, remained silent, his expression stoic as always. He wasn't there to argue with the man. He had something more powerful to show him. Clint slowly reached inside his jacket, his movements deliberate and calm. The judge raised an eyebrow. "What's this, Mr. Eastwood? Are we going to break into a scene now?" he sneered. Clint didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a small leather wallet and flipped it open with smooth precision. The judge's eyes narrowed, then widened in disbelief as Clint flashed his United States Secret Service badge. The room went completely still. Every head in the courtroom turned toward the badge. The judge's smile faded, his face now frozen in shock. For a moment, it felt like time itself had stopped. Clint's voice broke the silence, low and steady. "I'm not just an actor, Your Honor. I'm a United States Secret Service reserve agent. And I don't take kindly to people like you underestimating me." The judge's smug demeanor had evaporated, replaced by an uncomfortable shift in his seat. Clint's reputation had already made him a powerful figure, but this revelation was something entirely different. The judge cleared his throat, the bravado in his earlier words now crumbling. I wasn't aware of your service, Mr. Eastwood," he stammered, his face growing pale. The courtroom was electric now, the audience hanging on every word. Clint wasn't here for the drama. He wasn't here for the jokes or the mockery. He was here to show that respect couldn't be bought or dismissed. The judge, once so confident, now looked like a man who realized he had miscalculated. "You can sit back down now, Your Honor," Clint said, his tone firm but calm. "I think we both know how this is going to go." The judge, flustered and visibly shaken, took a long, slow breath. The once chaotic courtroom fell into a strange silence as the judge nodded and reluctantly signaled for Clint to return to his seat. As Clint walked back to his seat, the weight of the moment was still sinking in. The judge had no choice but to proceed with the hearing in a much more respectful tone, his previous attitude gone. Clint wasn't looking for special treatment. He wasn't looking to intimidate anyone. But in that one defining moment, Clint Eastwood reminded everyone that some people shouldn't be underestimated. He sat down, eyes scanning the courtroom, knowing that the power of respect and authority didn't always come from a badge or position. It came from the person holding it. As the session resumed, the judge avoided eye contact with Clint, but he knew one thing for certain. Clint Eastwood wasn't just a star, he was a force to be reckoned with. The room buzzed with whispers, but Clint, ever the professional, sat, back in his chair, waiting for the case to continue. As it did, everyone in that courtroom knew they had just witnessed a moment of silent, yet undeniable power. The judge, still clearly shaken, cleared his throat again, trying to regain some semblance of control. The courtroom remained eerily silent. Clint Eastwood, ever the composed figure, sat calmly, his gaze steady as he waited for the proceedings to continue. The judge shuffled through his papers, his earlier smugness now replaced with hesitation. "Let's move forward then," he muttered, his voice lacking the confidence it had earlier. Clint's mere presence had changed the atmosphere in the room. He wasn't just an actor now. He was a man with authority, someone who could command respect, even in the face of mockery. The rest of the session played out without incident, the judge now more measured in his words, more respectful of Clint's time and stature. But Clint didn't need to make any more grand statements. His silence spoke volumes. As the case came to a close, Clint stood to leave, his movements deliberate and calm. The judge, still visibly rattled, finally addressed him with a small nod. "Thank you, Mr. Eastwood," he said, his voice subdued. Clint gave him a small, knowing smile. "You're welcome, Your Honor. Just remember, respect goes both ways." With that, Clint walked out of the courtroom, the doors closing behind him with a soft thud. Outside, the sun was setting, and Clint took a moment to breathe in the cool air. He had made his point without raising his voice, without causing a scene. He had shown the world that there were some things you didn't laugh at. As Clint walked away, his silhouette growing smaller with each step, the people in that courtroom would never forget the lesson they had learned today. Power, respect, and authority weren't always about what you could do in a courtroom. They were about who you were and what you stood for.